my name is Jami Summey-Rice, and I'm a senior at the University of Houston and was a WISE 2015 intern. WISE is the Washington Internships for Students of Engineering. The American Institute of Chemical Engineers has been a sponsor since 1981, and it's a project that allows engineers to interact with government and policymakers to understand how important engineering and science is to the policymaking process. I'm here with the 2016 WISE interns, Nick, Austin, and George, and we're going to learn about their experience. I'd really like it if y'all could introduce yourselves, tell us what school you came from, and what your project topic was.
So my name is Austin Wright-Pettibone, and I'm from the University of Washington. I studied gene drives for the summer, looking into some of the governance challenges associated with emerging biotechnologies.
And my name is Nick D'Angelo. I attend the University of Akron, and over the summer I looked at aging infrastructure, and specifically looking at water distribution infrastructure in the United States and how that pertains to lead contamination and corrosion mitigation plans for water districts.
Great.
And my name is George Basali. I recently graduated from the City College of New York in June, and this summer I studied electric vehicle policy and looking at legislation to advance battery storage technologies and make electric vehicles more prevalent in the United States.
Okay, great. So starting with you, please tell us why your topic was important to you.
So gene drives as an emerging biotechnology were almost perfectly symbolic of the stresses that biotech advances were placing on the regulatory system, and it's something that was so profoundly impactful in being potentially able to change how we interact with the natural world. I really wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to really dive deep into a topic in order to understand how we can make changes in the policy sphere as engineers.
Absolutely.
So at school I specifically studied corrosion and corrosion systems, and one of the things that fascinated me about my topic area was how across the United States we need $400 billion worth of investment in water distribution infrastructure, and this is primarily caused to an aging infrastructure. And as we saw in Flint, we saw Flint essentially corroded out their entire water distribution system because they didn't have an effective corrosion treatment plan in water treatment, and it was a man-made disaster that could have easily been avoided if we had proper treatment plans from the start.
Absolutely. George?
And for me, I was really passionate about the renewable energy space, and I wasn't sure which direction I was going within like the application of renewable energy. And so interestingly enough, the AIChE interns haven't actually, they've focused primarily on grid storage in the previous years, and no one's done the electric vehicle or mobile battery development technologies. So I decided to go that route and try something new. And in addition to that, I'm also really passionate about like seeing electric vehicles out there, because like I personally want one.
That's a good reason.
And they're quite expensive, and
Very.
there could be policies to make them more affordable to consumers and more prevalent. And I think that's really important in today's time.
Right. We'll start with George this time. Can you tell me anything that surprised you about the WISE program, or anything you learned that you really didn't expect to learn?
So I think one of the like coolest aspects about like the WISE program was how real it was. And like, so I expected to I expected it to be like a more of an academic program, because that's what it sounded like. But we got to DC and we went to all these meetings and we met all these people, like both like part of the program and like outside of or like that weren't scheduled in the program, and it was incredible to see policy in real life, and that's what shocked me the most about the program, and that's one of the things I appreciated the most about the program. So like I don't know if we have time for a quick story.
Yeah, quick story, do it.
Yeah, so I went to this Senate caucus meeting on fuel cells, because this was before I had finalized my electric vehicle focus, and I went like completely on a whim and just to check it out and hear more about it, and I ended up meeting with like one of the directors of fuel cells at the DOE, and we had a really interesting conversation, and like we exchanged contact information, and it was that was just being in the right place at the right time, essentially. And it was one of the coolest experiences for me over the summer.
I think, and I told this story during my presentation earlier, is when I got applied for WISE program, being an engineer, bringing that technical aspect to policy making, and what I was most surprised about is getting to DC and starting the research and getting involved in like the day-to-day and reading up and meeting and talking to different officials is, especially with the Flint water crisis and how I came to DC thinking I'm going to bring my chemical engineering classes, my aqueous excursion classes, and we're going to find a magical chemical additive. We'll just put it everywhere, we'll call it a day, no more lead contamination. And it really was just a breakdown in public policy and the implementation of public policy. So no matter what kind of intentions that policymakers have and the regulators have in crafting these rules, it's effectively enforcing them throughout small water districts, large water districts. And so it really gave me an appreciation for the complexity of even the simplest of subjects, like corrosion treatment plan. How does that work for a water district of 50 people versus 250,000? And a one-size-fits-all solution hardly ever exists.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and building off of that, for me, I came to WISE really wanted to look at synthetic biology broadly, and one of the things I was most surprised about was how much access I was given to people who were really not just making the policy around these technologies, but developing the technologies themselves. And I quickly realized that synthetic biology as a whole would be far too much to take on in 9 weeks. Even just gene drives as one specific instance of an emerging biotechnology was almost too much to be taking on because there were so many different issues you were focusing on. So I'd spend, like 1 week, I spent time and I talked with 8 different IP lawyers just to like really dig into like this one specific issue that I was focusing on. And then I'd go and I'd talk with a developer of the technology. I was over at the State Department a bunch of times, or the White House, or on the Hill, working with different folks in different arenas. And it was the breadth of access that you were able to have in order to sort of piece together what this issue was in all of the different capacities that it had. I think the nuances that we were able to develop was pretty incredible from all the papers that I was able to read and the presentations of my colleagues gave. So that was incredible. And I think that also going off of what George was saying, the access we had to the speakers that our faculty member and residents brought in. I remember one person was an engineer who'd brought a case before the Supreme Court, and it was talking about how he, as an engineer, viewed the political process, and he was practicing as an engineer, but he really wanted to get involved in making changes on the legal side as well. And we really got exposed to everything that you could ever imagine, and a lot more than you could have before coming into the program.
And touching off of that is just like the networking and the people that you're able to meet, even by like accident, by chance. I was connected with a committee member that sat on the drinking water committee. Their stepdaughter happened to have a friend that worked over in the Senate building, and then they connected me with my senator's office. And then I'm having lunch with the legislative aide for Senator Sherrod Brown, talking about my policy work and how it aligns with Sherrod Brown and the overall Senate agenda. So it's just fascinating how just one person can be a catalyst to meet some very incredible people.
Oh yeah, like I got connected with one person through AIChE, who connected me with a person at the State Department, who connected me with another individual who then gave me a job right after it. And so it was like, it was just meeting with people to try and figure out what gene drives were, and suddenly I ended up with the stuff that was going on even to this day,
Yes.
way beyond what I had just thought about when I initially came here.
Awesome. So I know from experience that it is a very packed summer. It flies by. What about your personal time? What was your favorite thing in your personal time? If you had any personal time.
I think really getting to kind of figure out the culture of DC was really fun. There was a lot of time that we spent. We were all roommates, and so just kind of spending the time getting to know each other, exploring the city, seeing what it had to offer. It was really cool. We were there right at the beginning of Pride Week too, so that was really cool for me to come into the city and just suddenly be immersed in everything that DC had to offer from a totally different perspective. And then we went out a couple times, and it was really fun to have a bonding experience with so many people who were so close to you every moment of the day.
Absolutely.
I really took the summer, my personal time to really take in the city. I mean, I'm from Akron, Ohio, and I love Akron, but I mean, being able to spend a summer in Washington, D.C., I ran a lot over the summer, and just being able to do a morning run on the National Mall. And like the first couple days, you're in awe, and then a couple weeks in, you just take it for granted that you're in our nation's capital, and you're 240 years of history that people have fought for and defended what the city stands for, and we get to have an opportunity to live there and participate in DC's day-to-day life.
George?
And I agree with everything they said, but like another great aspect of like the social life in DC was there was this program that was offered in DC primarily in Georgetown. So it was $99 all summer to have unlimited paddleboarding, stand-up paddleboarding, kayaking, and like canoe rentals. So I definitely took advantage of that, and there were even like guest passes. So like I brought a bunch of I know my roommate came with me like almost every time we would go stand-up paddleboarding or kayaking, and like any time a friend came to visit over the summer, we'd do it, and it's so beautiful to kayak or stand-up paddleboard in the Potomac. And you're like passing by monuments, and like you see like the Georgetown district, and it's incredible.
I also learned to kayak when I lived in DC, and still love it. Still want to kayak. What advice would you give to anyone who is interested in the WISE program? We can start with me.
Definitely apply. It's an experience unlike anything else that I've ever had, and I feel very fortunate that I did it. But also, WISE is a real opportunity. I think as engineering students, we have a lot of classes that we have to be taking, and it's a lot of work. And what WISE really represents is the ability to really drill into one subject material and become an expert in that for those 9 weeks. And if you take advantage of it, the opportunities that you're going to be able to fulfill yourself with afterwards are pretty boundless. And I think that the WISE program is so good for being able to give you another perspective, because as technical individuals, we're very analytical and we spend a lot of time doing problems, but WISE helps you really contextualize all the work that you've learned in the classroom, and that's the biggest value, because when I go and talk with employers now during interviews, they all want to know, like, what can I bring to their work? And now it's not just that I'm a good engineer, but it's that I'm a good engineer who can contextualize my work to lead in whatever industry that I'm involved within.
Very good.
And my advice would be, and I would build off that, but also to apply. But the thing that I probably took away most from it is when I tell my friends like back home, like what did you do in DC all summer? And I was like, well, I've looked at the public policy in my engineering major. And they're like, well, why does that matter? And then I look at that and I'm like I had mentioned earlier, effective public policy is created by people who understand the technical details behind it, that can see the long-ranging implications of what rules are developed by whatever agency. But it's also the perspective, and again, they'll say, well, why does public policy matter to me? Like, I want to do process flow or process dynamics, and I mean, but federal funding flows throughout the entire government system, and it kind of determines research grants, the direction of research at facilities. I co-op with the Air Force, and whatever money is flowing through the Department of Defense that's being set from the White House and the OSTP level, that the flow of funding is a large indicator of what we want to do and what we can do. And that's why engineers should be very concerned and involved in the public policy process.
I completely agree. George?
To people applying, I would say definitely apply. And also, once you get to DC and once you start the program, take advantage of every opportunity that's thrown at you, and keep an open mind, because I think that, well, at least for me, my reality of WISE before WISE and my reality of WISE once I was in DC was completely different. So like I had a topic that I wanted to do, and once I got to DC, completely changed my mind. And I know my roommate, he did the same thing, and I think that happens quite a lot in the program. And there's so much thrown at you while you're in DC that it's important to take advantage of all of it. And I guess another piece of advice would be to keep challenging yourself. And even I know we challenged each other a lot. I think we spent half the summer, maybe more, debating.
Oh yeah, that sounds about right.
And I think that's really important, and I think that helped all of us because we got very confident in our topics because we would just pick at each other's.
Yeah, they
Makes sense.
challenged you and it made you better.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I have one final question. If you could, in just a couple of sentences, tell us, how has WISE changed your life? From who you were before WISE to who you are now. You can take a second to think about it if you need to. And we can go in any order.
So I think.
So-
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was at a conference a couple weeks after the program ended on sort of the future of energy research with the Secretary of Energy, and I was listening to a panel, and it was 5 engineers who've been practicing for 20 or 30 years, and they're talking about the need for increased infrastructure spending. And they detailed us through their entire plan. It was a 2.5-hour presentation. And at the end of it, they kept coming back to, we need more spending, it's not coming, but we have the solution. And it's, yeah, you do have the solution, but you can't sell it. And that's the problem. That's what WISE gives you. It makes you understand that problems that we deal with in society aren't just technical in nature as much as we're comfortable in that arena. They're socio-technical. And the WISE program made me realize that anything that I'm gonna do, it's because I can be successful in it if I bridge the gap between the social aspect and the technical aspect in order to really lead in whatever field that I'm involved in. The WISE program not only gave me the best friends that I have ever had in my life, but really helped me realize that I can be a good leader if I'm better able to understand a broader sense of the world. And I think they've given me that opportunity.
And to build off that, I mean, the greatest thing I gained from this program is perspective on the role of engineering and what we can bring to public policy development. And as he had said, you can have the best, most detailed plan, your T's crossed and your I's dotted, but if you can't sell it to politicians, if you can't sell it to the American people, then what good is the best plan imaginable? And so, I mean, even through my own research, I saw that we have the answers to our problems, but can we implement them effectively? And I mean, it goes into leadership and how you can effectively sell ideas to these large-ranging ideas that have these large societal impacts.
And I think for me, WISE has drastically changed my career trajectory. So like prior to getting into the WISE program, I had accepted a consulting job offer, and it's a combination of like finance and tech, and that's what I thought I had always wanted to do because those were 2 really interesting topics to me. Then I got to WISE and I actually learned about public policy and bridging the gap between engineering and policy, and that has actually shaped like what I actually want to do, and I'm going to be like applying to grad school, ideally for engineering public policy. So like if you talk to any one of my friends from undergrad, like before I had gotten into the program, and you asked them like, what is Georgia gonna do? They would have said something along the lines of like Wall Street or consulting. And now they like after WISE and like we talk and they see how WISE has like shifted my career trajectory, and like they all laugh about it, but
That's okay. You'll
But-
do great things.
that's how WISE has changed my life.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for participating in WISE. Please stay active in AIChE and WISE, and tell your friends and tell the students coming up in your programs.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.